All right, guys, so we got to do a follow-up video to a video that I made yesterday about the Colorado football players getting their chains and jewelry, expensive jewelry that they bought with their college football money that they're now getting paid, getting it stolen, okay? Stolen out of the UCLA visitors or away team locker room on their trip to California. And during my response, I basically said, look, these players need to be smarter in multiple ways. One, they should be smart enough not to bring jewelry to a locker room, right? A trip to California, because I really don't understand why football players are wearing jewelry to a game, okay, or keeping jewelry in a locker room. I'm not sure if it's smart to have valuables in the locker room, but also on top of that, I just don't think it's smart for these young men to be buying jewelry in the first place, right? Just from a financial perspective. Now, one of the reasons why I am making this video is because my comments and my commentary on this situation has been misinterpreted to mean that I am victim blaming, right? As if I am saying that the players are responsible for having their jewelry stolen, and I'm excusing the criminals that actually stole the jewelry, when that's just simply not the case, right? What I'm actually advocating for is common sense. But again, we live in a world where you can't criticize people who happen to be black without being accused of pandering to the white man, okay? If you are a black person criticizing them, right? Which we're going to get into, okay? Because again, we have people who think that I'm trying to pander to the white man and that I'm being inconsistent with my positions based off race, right? So we're going to talk about it. Now, Deion Sanders seems to have heard some of my criticism, okay? And maybe I'm not the only person online who has criticized the fact that these players are bringing expensive chains and jewelry in the locker room, because he actually responded, okay? He responded to my comments, and I'm not saying that, again, it's directly to my comments, but essentially the comments they were responding to is essentially the same opinion that I have, or the comments that I made in a recent interview. And I want to go ahead and play these comments and expand on this topic, because I just don't think that some people are getting it, right? They're not getting the actual message here that I am trying to send when it comes to this situation. So without further ado, go ahead and roll the clip.
Hey, Coach, Pat Graham, Associated Press. You planned for everything, and one thing you couldn't plan for was the theft like that. But so what kind of safeguards do you put in place to make sure that nothing like this happens again for your team?
Well, like what? Well, I don't understand.
Like, just make sure, like, no kind of theft. I mean,
we don't get robbed?
Yeah.
We leave our own security. We don't depend on someone else's security. We leave our own security in the locker rooms and make sure we're straight by our own means. But you got to understand, that was on the road. You're not thinking like that. You're not even thinking like that at home. So that was, and you're in the Rose Bowl, man. Like, who robs the Rose Bowl? Who robs the Rose Bowl? Somebody. So, but the kid, a lot of the things were emotional things that we're giving to them, like chains and necklaces and gifts. And you got some idiots online saying, well, they shouldn't have that, so they shouldn't be blessed. They shouldn't be blessed. That's crazy. It's like if you have a car in your driveway and somebody come and steal your car. Well, you shouldn't have a car. That's how stupid that sounds. Yeah. These are young men that worked their butts off, or they were blessed and gifted by their family members to give them what was stolen. I know someone had a significant amount of cash, one of our camera guys, and we pray to God that he gets that replaced. Bad. It's not good, though.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I can't do anything but laugh, because that was one of the worst answers I've ever heard in my life from a coach. I'm so serious. And people go say, oh, you hating? No, I'm not hating. I like Deion Sanders. I want Deion Sanders to be successful. And because I want him to be successful, this is why this is so frustrating to me, because I just think that he's going to have to eat a whole lot of humble pie before he realizes that his approach to I guess, being the leader of these men, I don't think is correct. I don't think that he's instilling the right values in these young men. And I really hate to say that because I am rooting for him. But the more he talks, the more sure I am that this experiment at Colorado probably is not going to end well. Okay. And again, this is not me hating. Okay. I defended Deion when he left the HBCU and all the pro blacks was attacking him, saying he's selling out to the white man. I defended him. Okay. I've defended him before in the past, but I can't defend this. But let me break down why this answer was just so bad, right? First and foremost, he was asked, well, what type of measures are you going to put in place to avoid getting robbed in the future? Now, instead of giving the obvious answer that I think that his team needs at this point, considering how this team walks around as if they've won a national championship when they haven't won nothing, right? And they're clearly arrogant, okay? They were overrated, okay? And now they're getting the shit beat out of them on a weekly basis because of it, right? Every team is giving them their A game. He should have said, we're not bringing any more jewelry into the locker room, period. That's what he should have said. In order to avoid getting robbed, we're not going to bring any jewelry into the locker room. We're here to play football. We're not here to be in a rap video. We're not here to be on a magazine cover. We're not doing a photo shoot. We haven't won anything. Leave the jewelry at home. But he didn't say that, right? He said, well, we need to bring our own security. Okay. Then he says, well, all these players, they bought a bunch of valuables, right? Things that their parents gave them or that was gifted to them, right? I mean, I personally believe these are chains that these players bought, right, with their college football money that they're making now, okay, making bad financial decisions. So if it's so valuable, if it's something that their parents bought them, right? If it's so valuable to them, why would you tell them to bring it into the locker room? Why would you not tell them, don't bring it? Don't bring it to the locker room. Leave it at home. That way it doesn't get stolen. Because even if you have your own security, there is still a chance that it can get stolen. There's a chance that the security could pull an inside job and steal the jewelry. So again, if it's so valuable, right? If these were gifts, you know, some one of the guys had cash money. Why not tell them, don't bring it, right? Just don't bring it. Again, just completely it's almost like they're not learning the lesson here, right? Then he responds to the criticisms online, people like myself, right? Who basically said, yeah, I don't understand why these players have this jewelry in the first place. Why are they out here buying this expensive jewelry, flexing it on a football field, right? Putting themselves in these stupid situations. And then he says, people like me are idiots, right? I'm an idiot, okay? According to Deion Sanders. Are you saying that the players can't be blessed? That's just like saying if a player goes out and buy a car and their car gets stolen, that they can't buy a car. And this is where, again, I just have to laugh because first and foremost, being blessed is not about your material possessions. Being blessed is about the fact that you're in a position where you can acquire those material possessions, but it's not the material possessions themselves, right? You're not blessed because you have a chain. You're not blessed because you have fancy, expensive jewelry or a fancy car or a nice house. That does not make you blessed. What makes you blessed is the fact that you have the ability to have these things, not that you actually have them. And then the car comparison is just so dumb because it reminds me of the same type of criticisms that I've been getting on X for putting my opinion out on this, where people just are completely missing the point of what I'm saying, which is that it's not the player's fault that the jewelry was stolen. But the players should have been smarter with how they carry themselves with that jewelry to avoid these situations happening, because these situations do happen, okay? If you buy an expensive car, a Rolls Royce, for example, if you buy a Rolls Royce and you start pumping your gas in a bad neighborhood in your Rolls Royce, no, it's not your fault if somebody comes up and robs you, but it is your fault for pumping gas in a neighborhood that increases your chances of getting robbed or carjacked in the first place. Okay? And let me make it clear. Yes, that criminal should be punished to the fullest extent of the law for doing that. But that still does not mean that you should not take precautions and be smart about how you move if you choose to buy a Rolls Royce. Okay? This is why I don't have an expensive car, right? This is why I don't even believe in getting expensive cars for that very reason. Because essentially you've become a target, right? The only way I would buy an expensive car is I lived out in the middle of bump nowhere, right? That's the only time I would buy an expensive car like that. But if I'm in some liberal city, right? If I'm adjacent to some bad neighborhood, I'm not gonna buy an expensive car. I'm not gonna run around an expensive car because you're making yourself a target. Now, again, is it your fault if something happens to you? No. But you are, in fact, increasing the chances of you being a target. That's just the reality. Again, that for whatever reason, that concept is over people's heads. They can't get it, right? Because I've been getting responses to some of the things I've been saying like this from this guy. Blackmail First on X. He says, responding to my post where I basically said, you know, look, they need to put the chains up, invest their money wisely, and focus on playing football, not flashing Rolexes in fans' faces and playing victim after getting targeted. He says, okay, so since you're going with that logic, there's something to be said about the white boys flashing their ordinary businesses in ordinary citizens' faces, then crying a river after getting looted by anarchists. What did they think was going to happen? This is one of the stupidest responses I've ever seen in my life. Now, before I respond to this, I want you guys to understand the type of people that are saying this, okay? This guy responds. He says, what do we do about need to grows like this? He means Negroes. He says, I hate these kind of black conservatives. Being a black conservative shouldn't mean kissing white boy ass. Now, I'm not sure in my post or anything about my commentary where I'm kissing the white man's ass or the white boy's ass, okay? But hey, this is how they interpret this stuff because their mind is racialized. Then the guy responds, he says, they're only conservative for white approval, not for the betterment of black people. I have conservative values, but I am not stupid enough to think conservative whites have contempt for my existence, and the white women will be choosing heavy. Yeah. So in some of these posts, you know, I was called, you know, the slur that they call, you know, all black people who, you know, don't necessarily want to go along with, you know, the race narrative that, you know, even you have some so-called black conservatives who want to push the conscious ones. That's what they call themselves, the conscious black conservatives, right? I responded to this guy in his little silly comparison by saying, a business is not being flashy or inviting themselves to get robbed in virtue of being a business. Most businesses take proactive steps to avoid getting robbed. These players were reckless, and refusing to acknowledge that is a part of the problem. So, again, this is what I'm talking about. Because you have these silly comparisons that people are saying to try to make it seem like I'm being inconsistent, okay, with what I'm saying, and that I'm somehow seeing it differently because these guys are black, and now I'm not blaming criminals or, you know, wanting the criminals to be held accountable for stealing the guy's jewelry just because they're black. And, oh, well, when black people rob white businesses, oh, I'm boohoo whining and crying, I'm blaming criminals. It's like, this is so dumb, right? It's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life, because businesses, again, are not inviting themselves to be robbed just because they're businesses, okay? But even if you accept that, right? Let's say you do believe that a business is inviting themselves to be robbed because they're businesses, right? Businesses take proactive steps to avoid being robbed, right? So, for example, they lock their doors, right? They lock their doors when they shut down. They put their valuable items up, okay, in a place that, you know, at least will require some effort to break into if people actually really want it that bad. Okay, they put their money in a safe. They take their money out of the cash register, right? They take proactive steps to avoid getting robbed or to lessen the impact of getting robbed, okay? What I'm advocating for these players to do is to take proactive steps to lessen the chance of them getting robbed, because people will try to rob them because of the way that they flash their jewelry. A more appropriate comparison would be a comparison that we see every single day. Like, for example, when I go to the gym, there's always this big sign in front of the gym that says, don't leave your valuables in your car, right? They tell you. And also, don't leave your valuables in the locker room. They tell you not to do that. Why do they tell you to do that? They don't tell you to do that because it's your fault if you get robbed. They tell you don't do that. Don't leave your valuables in your car or in the locker room because there is a chance that you will get robbed. Because there are people that break into people's cars to look for valuable items to steal. Again, it doesn't mean it's your fault that you got the stuff stolen from, but they're telling you don't leave it in there because there's an increased chance that you will get robbed. That's literally the exact same thing that I'm saying in this situation, where I tell these players, don't bring your jewelry to the game. You don't need it. You're not there to be in a rap video. You're there to play football. The jewelry does not help you play football. If these are things that your parents gave you, that your family members gave you, which again, I really don't believe a lot of that. Maybe it is, maybe it is not. Then, again, why bring it? Why bring it to the game? Keep it at home. Now, if these players would have got robbed in their own home, there's nothing I can say. Because at the very least, I can say, well, they kept it in their house. I mean, if they get robbed in their house, I mean, it's, hey. I can't say they could have done anything more to be proactive with, because, again, you're not making yourself a target by keeping things in your home, right? But when you take your valuable things out of your home and you wear it in public and you flash it in public, yeah, you are making yourself a target. Again, it's not right for you to get robbed, but you are increasing your chances of getting robbed. I don't understand why this is such a hard concept for people to grasp. Because people want to deflect and try to pretend like we don't live in a reality where people do rob people. I said, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they bring the jewelry to the game or not. They bought the jewelry to the game because they can. Okay. They bought the jewelry to the game because they can. Well, guess what? Right? If you want to accept that, then you also have to accept that they made themselves targets because they could, right? Because they wanted to. So they have to accept the responsibility and the chance of being targeted, of being robbed, because they flex their ability to bring the jewelry to the game, right? Just like if you go out and you buy an expensive car and you run around in a bad neighborhood, you have to accept the fact that, hey, I got this expensive car. I'm in a bad neighborhood. I'm at increased risk of being robbed or being carjacked or being confronted. This is not a hard concept. But again, this is stuff that the coach should be telling them. But the coach is not telling them. The coach is not actually giving them advice that is actually going to make the players smarter in regards to their own personal lives. And that's the most frustrating thing to me, because when I see these young men walk around with this expensive jewelry on that they're buying with their college football money that is going to dry up, money that they're not going to be making forever. Again, the chance of some type of injury ending their career or them not going to the NFL is high when you play football. I think the average football career, if you go pro, is 3 years. A lot of these players are not going pro, okay? So that money's going to dry up. So to me, because I do care about black people, because I do care about black people building wealth, I don't believe in handouts. When you get something like the opportunity to make millions of dollars playing a game, if you really care about these players, when you see that these players are clearly spending their money in ways that are bad on depreciating assets like cars and jewelry and expensive clothes and women and crazy stuff, I think that it would be a smart thing to say, hey, maybe you should spend your money on appreciating assets. Maybe you should actually be putting all that money in a brokerage account or an investment account and investing your money for the long term so that you can build generational wealth. You know, that thing that black people claim they want so much, but a vast majority of the black community doesn't have the financial literacy to actually do, but they want reparations just for black people to turn around and spend the money the same way that these football players are spending the money, right? Which will basically guarantee that there will be no benefit in the reparations outside of, you know, people buying expensive cars and jewelry and clothing that won't be worth a damn thing in 10 or 20 years. And if you want to call it pocket watching, call it pocket watching. But at the end of the day, I don't call it pocket watching. I actually just think that I'm trying to give them some good advice. Advice that I think young men like that stumble into life-changing amount of money need to avoid being broke in the future. And then we always have these stories about these black athletes going broke. They spent their playing years flexing, flashing, buying jewelry, cars, clothes, depreciating assets, and everybody was like, oh, well, they got that drip, right? Well, that's just them. They're being unapologetically black. You don't like them acting black. Well, I'm sorry if I don't think acting black is flexing jewelry and your expensive cars and your clothes. I don't think that's acting black. I don't define it as acting black. What I define that as is just financial ignorance, right? But again, you have so many stories about these black athletes that go broke behind trying to flex when they should be humble, have some humility, invest their money, save their money, be frugal so that they have prosperity in the long term. But again, they're not being told that. And then once they're broke, they turn around and say, well, I wish somebody told me that. Right? I wish somebody told me not to buy this car or these clothes or to do this and to do that. But you know, hey, the people that did try to tell you, oh, well, you trying to be white. You're trying to pander to the white man. You just hate black people being black. It's stuff like this. This is why black people can't get ahead. It ain't got nothing to do with the white man except the obsession with the white man, right? But it ain't got nothing to do with the actions of the white man. Black people, we just do it to ourselves. Because the black people that do come out here and actually say things that actually are going to be helpful for black people are told that you're acting white, you don't like black people being black, you're a racial slur, you're this, you're that. So at this point, I might just start wasting my breath. Do what you want to do, right? Keep bringing your jewelry to the locker rooms, okay? Depend on your security guys that may do an inside job, right? Keep buying the expensive cars and the clothes. Keep doing it. I don't give a damn if they go broke, right? What about that? I'm celebrating their blackness. So stupid, bro. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.